Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Thank you for having this really important hearing about transparency and really accountability. Mr. Holy, in 2020 performance recap, TransDigm had reported that the company fired more than 30% of its workforce in response to the reduced demand during the pandemic. Has TransDigm rehired all of the people that they laid off in 2020, yes or no?
Excuse me, I was muted. The answer is no.
Yeah, just keep it unmuted for a while, okay? TransDigm also stated that it was, quote, implementing unpaid furloughs and salary reductions across the organization. So, Mr. Holy, as we sit here today, has TransDigm restored the employees who furloughed or had their salaries cut in 2020, yes or no?
I don't know the answer to that in all cases.
Okay, please send the answer later to the committee.
Yeah, the commercial airline which is the big chunk of our business.
Okay, I'm trying to get to a point. You can explain it in your response. Mr. Holy, in 2020, in response to the pandemic, you gave up about 2% of your total compensation, correct?
I gave up something, I don't remember the percent.
Okay, it's 2%. At the same time, TransDigm reported to the SEC that your total compensation in 2020 was just over $68 million, including dividends and option awards. So while TransDigm was laying off employees and cutting salaries, it was paying you more than $68 million, even when accounting for the measly 2% of your salary that you gave up. So Mr. Holy, are you aware that you received more than compensation than the CEOs of Raytheon, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin combined? Combined, yes or no?
I don't know what their...
Well, my colleague showed you a chart.
I don't know what their compensation is. Can you repeat the question?
I'm trying to find where we can get the money that you owe the American people. So I'm trying to get to a point.
Repeat the question to me about compensation, just so I can answer it carefully. About the
do you know that you receive more compensation than the CEOs combined of Raytheon, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin?
I don't know their compensation.
That's right. Your compensation was so high that TransDigm felt that it had to include a note in a shareholders report that acknowledged the, quote, magnitude of Mr. Holy's reported compensation, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Mr. Stein, before we go on, Chairwoman, can I submit for the record the compensation charts, please?
Without objection.
Mr. Stein, to you, Dr. Stein, to you. You received about $22 million in total compensation in 2020 after forfeiting about 25% of your salary, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Oh, thank you for your honesty. So to recap, at the time when the American families were and still are struggling with the financial burden of the pandemic, TransDigm paid two executives here today around $90 million, while at the same time laying off, furloughing, cutting the salaries of its other employees. $90 million, I might add, that TransDigm got by screwing over the American people. Sadly, TransDigm is not unique. You just got caught. I know that we're talking about one company, but know that for me, this is the perfect, you all are the perfect poster child of an out of control defense budget that puts the interests of wealthy, well-connected people like yourselves ahead of the best interests of the American people. You are, for my residents, what corporate greed looks like in America. You too and TransDigm must be held accountable and must pay the $20.8 million in excess profits identified by IG. I would recommend that it comes out of your salaries as your last act before you both resign in disgrace. I would also add on and call on the Department of Defense as a whole to ensure that not a single cent of taxpayer money ever goes to a business run by either of these folks again. It is so critically important, and Chairwoman, we need to continue holding these folks accountable, because when we are not holding them accountable, then we have to cut programs and those things that actually attack this virus, protect the families at the forefront. And for all of my colleagues, they may be wearing suits and may be millionaires and wealthy folks, but they can still be scammers of our country. They can still be scamming our folks. I wish you would all treat them the same way you would if somebody was on food assistance and they didn't maybe qualify. Whatever it is, the fact of the matter is we need to hold them accountable equally. It's the same as we would hold anybody coming before our committee, again, that used their resources and undermining and also scamming the system to basically make off a profit off of all of us. So I thank you and I yield.